So my name's Eric Sanders. I'm the founder, managing partner of eCloud Managed Solutions based in Milton, Georgia. I used to run the practice of a large integrator for managed services in cloud. One of our challenges that I saw there was really helping customers understand how to onboard the cloud. As a traditional integrator, we wanted to sell them hardware and professional services. With eCloud, we're born in the cloud. We really want to help that customer get to the cloud through cloud readiness assessments, migration support, but also understand how do we mitigate risk and how do we mitigate risk on the move as well as risk on the costs that are associated with moving to the cloud. So the cloud is basically taking resources, people, process, and moving them from internally, externally. So if you have a data center that has hardware, OS, applications that are running on them, you could look at other ways to refactor those, reframe those, maybe repurchase or move those to the cloud. And you also have somebody potentially doing other tasks that you may be doing internally. Maybe they're looking at the hardware, maybe they're upgrading and patching the software in the hypervisor. There's also automation and orchestration that happens in the cloud. So there's a lot of innovation that customers are taking advantage of, along with improved security, elasticity, availability, things that are normal tasks that someone would do within their own private cloud environment that would not only eat up a lot of resources, but also a lot of people to be able to keep that up to date. So I think a customer should always look and entertain new technologies and the way people are doing business differently. So you should at least do a cloud assessment just to figure out what you're doing today, if it even makes sense for you to move to the cloud. If you're running a bunch of legacy AS400s or mainframes, maybe not, but we actually are seeing customers move mainframes to the cloud chunk by chunk by chunk. If you're running Windows and standard applications that 80–90% of most businesses do, yeah, I think you could look at the cloud and maybe take advantage of elasticity, security, availability, and just a global footprint that these public cloud providers offer to our customers. So interactions with CIOs, CFOs, CEOs, with talking to them about how the cloud is going to provide them advantages, there's just a vast amount of innovation going on in the cloud. Immediately when you go to an AWS or an Azure, you're automatically global. If you want to deliver content now across the globe, you're not dealing with latency between your data center in Atlanta, Georgia versus your data center in the UK. Now you take advantage of an AWS CDN network or an Azure CDN network. I think the other thing that you're going to see is you're going to move more to OpEx. You're going to have to change some of your operating tactics because some of the tasks that you would normally do with monitoring and managing an environment is now going to be done by that cloud provider. So you're going to gain efficiencies through that. I think the other key thing is rapid innovation, deployment with your product or service that you may be delivering to your customers. Now you're going to be able to take advantage of that at a global scale with a public cloud provider. The first step to look at moving to the cloud is to first off do a cloud readiness assessment. Let's figure out what applications you have, what operating systems, the health of that environment, what the dependencies look like within that environment. Secondly, do you want to move from a CapEx to an OpEx type environment? Do you want the flexibility to be able to scale out hundreds or thousands of servers in minutes versus the traditional way of going out and buying hardware, taking time for that to ship, unpack, rack in your environment and then spin those up. The other is, you can actually test and POC cloud providers. So a lot of customers don't do that, and that's a uniqueness that eCloud brings to the table is we can take a snapshot of your production environment, test out the applications, your operating system in your environment in one of these public cloud providers just to see how your environment's actually going to react in a AWS or an Azure type environment. So one way to limit your risk in the cloud is an approach that we take where we POC the different cloud providers against each other. By taking that snapshot of your applications, the OS, the data, and dropping it in an AWS, dropping it in an Azure, watching them both run, now we have those environments and we can start tweaking how security works, how data flows in and out of the environment, looking at the elasticity and the availability of the environment. And then trying to figure out where does DR as a service business continuity fits in. It's much easier to be able to do that because we're actually using your environment and your data, which separates us from other providers in our approach that we take to help you mitigate any of the risk and security concerns you may have with the cloud. So one of the big deteriorating factors for customers on moving to the cloud used to be security. Now it's actually cloud expertise. So being able to get trained on the cloud, AWS does a great job laying out the framework to help you get educated with the cloud into different steps, depending on your role. If you're an architect, they have associate solution architect, they have a professional, DevOps, sysadmin. So they have a very robust training program already laid out. With the expertise, I mean, if you do move to the cloud, I would encourage all customers to get up to date with what is going on in AWS. As I mentioned earlier, there's over 1,000 releases that happen. You're going to need to be up to date with what AWS currently has and where the future is going. I think what Stormwind brings to the table is decades of experience of actually delivering training. Not only delivering great training, but doing it successfully in multiple different media factors. In the AWS world, I mean, it's very important that you have different ways because people learn differently. And I think Stormwind, with their vast experience of the different portfolios they already offer today in manufacturers, is definitely a very natural lead-in for them to move into the cloud arena, working with the AWS and Azures of the world.